CB on the mic. World Rule Talk. Yeah. CB break it down, yeah, the host with the vision. From the classics to the new, every film get precision. Obscure reels hitting gems, yeah, we dig in the vault. Every frame get examined, every angle we talk. From the old school grain to the high def shine. Indie flicks to the hits, yeah, we cover all time. If it's cinema gold, then you know we gon' say, hit subscribe, tap in, let the critics all play. Yeah, film talk strong, never fading away. World Rule Talk forever and a day longer.
Yo, what up though? This is your boy C. to the B. coming at y'all once again with another movie review. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the last week of the summer blockbuster, and today I thought I'd save one of the most popular movies of all time for last. And that is Jurassic Park. So, based on the 1990 novel Jurassic Park, this movie is very, very different. So I talked about this before in the video, the movie versus book, but I felt like I didn't do a good enough job, so I'm just going to circle back around and talk about the movie. Now, I might mention a book here and there, but we're mostly just going to be focused on the movie. So, in the movie, we start off with the team, Jurassic Park employees trying to move a raptor, right? Trying to put it in the enclosure. And the way they're going about it, it was kind of foolish. I can't even lie. They should have had a safer way, something more automated instead of having a guy, on top of the cage, lifting the door, trying to get it in. Because I don't think, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that a raptor is not going to cooperate. So the second they lift the door, right, it runs out, knocks the guy off the top of the cage, falls to the ground, and then gets pulled in. And the raptor now is fighting with the rest of the employees to try to save this guy's life, But this raptor was not giving up. So eventually, it drugged the man inside of the cage and killed him. So now we go to the dig site. This is where we meet Gennaro, and these are him as guys, digging up amber and things like that. So the reason why Gennaro's there basically was because of that whole incident at the start of the film. He just wants to do an inspection to make sure the park is safe enough to open. And so when the guy said, I can't even front, when the guy said Hammond hates inspections, they slow everything down, I felt that. They really do slow everything down. You know what I'm saying? I can't even front. But the guy, one of the diggers, they didn't believe that Gennaro could get Dr. Grant, Alan Grant, played by Sam Neill. Rest in peace, by the way. He just recently passed. But they didn't believe that they can get Sam Neill to come to the island and basically sign off on it. But this is where we get to, Dr. Grant, Ellie Sattler, and the rest of the crew at the Snakewater, Montana dig site. So they built this machine, right? It's supposed to be like the future. You know what I'm saying? So it wouldn't have to manually dig anymore. And from what you can see, it works, but it's very sensitive because it's still very, very early technology. So somebody, built the system to where all they have to do is, mechanically dig, and then the fossil that they're, trying to dig up will show up on the screen of the computer. And so now we know that both in the book and in the movie, Alan Grant does not like computers at all. You know what I'm saying? He's not really a guy of technology. You know what I mean? He's old school, and he prefers it that way. So Ellie Sattler, her personality in the book, I I mean, I would say it's slightly different. You know what I'm saying? But the only difference is really like the big difference is the fact that in the movie they're together, but in the book that's um that's his student, Alan Grant's student. You know what I'm saying? And so in a book, you got somebody from the EPA showing up trying to investigate Hammond. You know what I'm saying? To make sure that he's not doing, committing any kind of wrongdoing. Versus the movie where Hammond himself shows up. And so my thing is this though, right? So you digging up the fossil of your life. You know what I'm saying? Something you've been trying to dig up since the beginning. This was like your dream fossil. And out of nowhere, it's like a dirt cloud. You know what I'm saying? Like this little storm, this mini dirt storm forming or whatever. And you see this helicopter landing. And so the reason for the helicopter's visit was because, you know what I'm saying, somebody was in Ellie's and Dr. Allen's trailer. And so when Grant walked in, he seen somebody digging through their refrigerator, taking a bottle of champagne. So I'm gonna say this right here too, right? If I come home and you all up in my fridge, you know what I'm saying, just looking for shit, and you pull out, you know what I'm saying, something that I've been saving or been wanting to eat or drink or whatever, oh, I don't care who you are, man. That's gonna piss me off. But when Grant found out who this guy was, it changed his whole tone. And then that's when Ellie walked in behind him. So in this scene right here, right? I don't know if many of you noticed, but from the outside, when he opened the door from the left, and then it cuts inside the trailer, he opened it from the right. You know what I'm saying? The door opened from the right. I don't know if y'all caught that or not, but next time you go look in the movie, make sure you catch that. But anyway, Hammond is explaining to the two that he just opened up something kind of like a zoo. You know what I'm saying? And they're curious to know what it is. And then he preferred to, bring them down for the weekend so, they can check around everything to make sure the park is safe and they can sign off on it and all that. So at first the two declined because they just dug up that raptor skeleton or whatever. And Hammond told them that they could fund their dig for the next 3 years, and that's what changed their mind. So the scene before this, right? I want to explain it real quick because I almost forgot. So the scene before this, where Grant is explaining the behaviors of a raptor. There's a kid in the crowd. Why there's a kid in the crowd, and I don't know where he came from, or is he a volunteer, or because in the book, the volunteer diggers are kids. You know what I'm saying? Versus the movie where it appears that most of them are adults. But he says it looks like a 6-foot turkey, and then this is where Grant, tries to intimidate him on what a raptor could do to you if it catches you. Now, there's a theory going around saying that kid was old boy from Jurassic World. You know what I'm saying? And I think what happened was it was never like officiated or whatever. It was never like an official theory. It's just something that, the internet came up with, I believe. But moving on though. So this is where, while they're in the helicopter on their way to the island, they stop by and pick up Ian Malcolm. You know what I'm saying? Played by good old Jeff Goldblum. So at first, Jeff Goldblum, he comes off, he comes off like a slick, smooth talker and all that because he's very obviously flirting with Ellie Sattler, right? Excuse me, by the way, y'all. That's my dog in the background. You know what I'm saying? He wants his mommy, my lady or whatever. Which I'm gonna go ahead and put him over there. But anyway, Hammond doesn't like Malcolm like that. Like neither in the movie or the book. Now, Malcolm's character is not as preachy as he is in the movie. I mean, in the book. Now, in the book, Malcolm's character, it's like one of those guys that has to be technical all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, if he sees that something is not going to work out or somebody says something that he doesn't agree with, you're going to get a whole like monologue or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Every single time about science, which, I kind of enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. You know what I'm saying? Like the interactions between him and Hammond in the book. Now, also, this is when, Hammond starts talking to them about, the island. And nobody's really like, I'm not going to say they're not impressed, but nobody's really, like giddy about seeing the island yet. You know what I'm saying? Until they actually get there. And I'm going to also say this too. In the movie, Hammond was doing it for the, for families and all of that. I mean, of course, he was going to make money off of this, stupid amounts of money. But his character personality and Donald Gennaro's personalities are switched. So in the movie, Gennaro, he's doing it for profit. And he's looking forward to making a lot of money off of this whole operation. And Hammond is just wanting to see, families be amazed and everything like that by the different dinosaurs. But in the book, Hammond is the one that's doing it for profit. You know what I'm saying? He even mentions the fact that he's pretty much opening the island to rich kids only. And Gennaro, he's doing it for the profit too, but at the same time, he just wants to make sure that the park is safe before opening anything. But moving on, we get to the park. You know what I'm saying? One of the most iconic scenes in the movie take place where they, show up in the Jeep in an open field, and then you see Grant look over in shock. And then Malcolm starts to look over, like, in shock. And then he twists Ellie's head so she's seeing what they're looking at. You know what I'm saying? And so now she's in shock. Now, this is like one of the things that I'm a sucker for in movies. Like the characters are looking at something before you see what it is. And this is the reveal of the first like dinosaur in the movie. And I said, yo, this is freaking amazing, man. Like, I've seen this movie a million, billion times, but that scene right there, the reveal, it gets me every single time. I don't care. I could watch this movie another million, billion times, and it'd be the same result because I love their reactions. Like, when this movie first came out, well, before this movie came out in theaters, we seen the trailer. You know what I'm saying? Like, you saw no, like, actual dinosaur. You might have seen the T-Rex's like foot or something like that, but that was really it. That's the closest you got to it. And that's how trailers should be right now, versus like they were back then. The only time you would want to see the dinosaur back then is if you went and saw the actual movie. You know what I mean? But anyway, this is where, Hammond starts giving them a tour, showing them the facility, how they, discovered dino DNA, which honestly, scientifically, the accuracy of that in real, like in a real life situation is probably not too accurate, you know what I mean? Because one, DNA, I think it dies off eventually, you know what I'm saying? Especially dinosaur DNA. I don't think you're going to find that, you know what I mean? Even in amber. And so they want to see, fertilized dino eggs. So Hammond takes them to the lab eventually. And this is when Dr. Wu comes in at BD Wong. Now, this was the only like Jurassic movie he was in, because he wasn't in The Lost World, of course, and he wasn't in 3. But he came back in Jurassic World. So BD Wong is like the head scientist or whatever of the lab, or head geneticist, my bad. And so, this is the thing right here too, right? So now, not only that they're pretty much remaking any kind of dinosaur, but I felt like it was a bad idea bringing back the Raptor. Which, by the way, the Raptors in the movie aren't really technically Velociraptors, but that's what they're called because the name sounds better than Dromaeosaur or the Utah Raptor or whatever. But because in real life the Velociraptor was as big as a chicken, maybe slightly bigger, but they were small. But yeah, I thought that was a bad idea. So they go out to the Raptor enclosure and you got this bull, you know what I mean, that they sit down in the enclosure, and next thing you know, you hear a bunch of Raptor running up on it, just ripping it apart. That's how they feed them, which is, I mean, it's sad for the animal, you know what I'm saying, but I guess it was a smart way to feed them because they kept attacking the fences every time the feeders came out. And then this is when we meet Mo Doom. You know what I mean? One of the best characters in the movie. You know what I'm saying? He's explaining to him about what one of the Raptors did and how she took over the pack. She killed all but two others. You know what I'm saying? And she uses those two others to do her bidding. Now, we get into one of my favorite characters in the movie. Even though he really didn't have much of a screen presence in the movie, but he was still one of my favorite characters due to his personality. And that is Ray Arnold. Now, in the book, his name is John Arnold, but I'm assuming they changed his name because, of John Hammond, and it would have caused confusion. So, Arnold in the book, whenever you hear him talk, you know what I'm saying, or the stuff he be saying, you're going to picture Samuel L. Jackson in your head every single time. You know what I'm saying? Because because I had the audiobook, when I was listening to the book, I always heard Samuel L. Jackson talking with a cigarette in his mouth because he was a chain smoker in the book and the movie. So this is where we meet Dennis Nedry as well, Wayne Knight's character. And from the beginning, you know what I'm saying, he was suspicious because he, you know what I'm saying, the first time we see him, he's out on his island eating, and he's waiting for Lewis Dotson to show up with half the money for him to go in and get the embryos and then deliver it to him. So, Dotson in the movie, I feel like was different than Dotson in the book. Dotson in the book was more aggressive and more brutal. You know what I mean? And he cursed a lot, but in the movie, it seemed like he was, just a normal guy just trying to compete with Hammond. All he wanted was the embryos, but it's just the way he came off about it. And the actor that played Lewis Dotson in the movie, I can't really say, but he got into some trouble. I'm just going to say that. You know what I mean? Now, Dotson in the book, again, you know what I'm saying? He held a meeting with all the board of directors of Biosyn to get their permission to do what he was about to do before he went and did it. Now, in the movie, there was no board meeting or nothing like that. That might have happened off screen. I don't know. But yeah, he gave Nedry the barbersaw can to get the embryos. So now we see the characters because we also meet, you know what I'm saying, the two kids. I said Dennis, Lex and Tim. Now in the book, Tim and Lex, their ages are swapped. In the movie, Lex is the older kid who knows more about computers, and Tim is the younger kid who's a big dinosaur fan. You know what I'm saying? Versus the book, where Tim is older. Not only does he know about dinosaurs, he also knows about computers. And in the book, Lex is one annoying child. I can't even front. I know she was a child. I get it. But you would not buy the fact that she just didn't care for dinosaurs in the book. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't buy that because she was more of a sports nut in the book. And she was always messing with Tim. You know what I'm saying? So The reason why they came to the island because their parents are getting a divorce. And, Hammond wanted them to have a fun weekend to take their minds off of it. And that's one thing I noticed too. There's a pattern with these movies. The first movie, their parents are getting a divorce. The second movie, it's a parental issues too with, the daughter and Malcolm. And, his girlfriend or whatever, she snuck off to the island without telling him because she knew that he wasn't going to approve. Which it really wasn't a divorcee issue or nothing like that. But I mean, you could say that it was close. It was similar. The third movie, the parents were already divorced when they was going to the island looking for their son. You know what I'm saying? And then this is when we get into Jurassic World, where the parents in that movie were getting divorced, and they sent their two sons to the island with Claire, which is their mother's sister, to have a good time. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that part was also ripped from the first movie and book. And then I'm not even going to get into the other two, but I'm going to say this right here, right? It's a pattern. So we get Tim and Lex in this movie. And then after this is when they, go on the Dinosaur tour or whatever. And it doesn't really last too long because it's about to rain. And it started raining, when they come across this sick Triceratops. They get out of the cars. Why they didn't have locking mechanisms on the doors to begin with, I don't know. So Alan Grant jumps out the car, and then Ellie follows behind him. You know what I mean? And they encounter the sick Triceratops, which in the book, it was a sick Stegosaurus. But, the scene where Ellie approached the Triceratops and started rubbing it and all that, and you can see her crying. I did not catch that until recently when I watched it again. You know what I'm saying? But, the Triceratops is sick because I guess it was eating some kind of berry or something like that, and it wasn't aware that it was eating it. And so Ellie, Sadler was digging through the crap to try to, figure out whether or not it ate it. And so this is where Malcolm, spits one of his classic lines. That's one big pile of shit. I don't know what that had me rolling. Malcolm was like, in the movie, Malcolm was like the audience. You know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't really hear too much of the chaotician coming out of him. But, he was just standing around a lot, curious to what was going on or whatever. And so this is when they get back to the Jeeps. And the power stalls because Nedry left his station to go execute the plan for Dotson. You know what I mean? To bring him the embryos and get the rest of his money. But the crazy part about that is he lost his way. You know what I'm saying? And so when he got lost, he came across this dead end or whatever, right? Now, unaware, him being unaware of where he was, because in the book he didn't take the tour, neither did he did in the movie. So he came across the Dilophosaurus, which did not appear at the in the tour that morning. And so the Dillo, appeared to be playing with him. And in the movie, the Dilophosaurus is like really short. I'll say about the size of a large dog. You know what I'm saying? But in the book, it was about 10 feet tall. So, Nedry started, messing with it, calling it stupid because, it didn't understand him or whatever. And so Nedry was like, yo, I'm going to run you down when I come back. You know what I mean? Because he was trying to get his car up out the mud. And so he slipped and fell, and a Dillo walked up to him again. And then when we cut back to the Dillo, that's when his frills came out in attack mode. But in real life, the Dilophosaurus did not have frills. You know what I'm saying? Nor did it spit acid. That was all invented for the movie. But anyway, it spat acid onto his shirt, just like in the book. And then Nedry tried to escape. And then it spat the acid into his eyes, which this right here, that it was a wrap for him. You know what I'm saying? And so he tried to get into the Jeep and, hit his head on the top of it. and fell backwards, and the Barbasol can fell out of his shirt. And later on, you have a whole like story around that one can. Somebody's coming to the island and try to retrieve it and all of that. You know what I'm saying? But that takes place after this movie. It was a game like that. Never got to play it though, but yo, I wish I would have. So my thing is this right here, right? When Nedry fell backwards after hitting his head, did the Dillo jump into his side of the car because the passenger door was closed? So it was like we never saw the Dillo jump into his Jeep. You know what I'm saying? But when Nedry finally got into the car, he thought he was safe. But then you saw the frill, like from his point of view, and then next thing you know, the Jeep starts rocking back and forth because the Dillo killed him. You know what I mean? So now all the systems are still down, and Ray Arnold can't get it back on without Nedry. It's over 2 million lines of code. Versus the book where he spends a lot of the time trying to get the part back in order, which he's seemingly successful. You know what I'm saying? He's successful with getting it back online. But there's a problem in the book. In the book, when he got it back online, he was running off auxiliary power that whole time, and he didn't know it. And in the movie, he just couldn't get it back online at all. You know what I'm saying? So the characters were stuck out in the field, you know what I'm saying, out there on the tour. And you had Tim and Lex and Gennaro in one Jeep. And then you had Malcolm and Grant stuck in another one. So this is when we finally see the T-Rex because it ate the goat. You know what I mean? And so the T-Rex discovered that the fence wasn't electrified anymore, and it escaped. Now, there's one character I haven't mentioned up to this point, but he's not in the movie. He's in the book. So, mind you, in the movie, Gennaro runs up out of the Jeep and goes into like this porta potty to get away from the T-Rex. Versus in the book, Gennaro wasn't with them at all. You know what I'm saying? It was a character named Ed Regis with them. He was the one doing the tour and everything like that. But he got out and left Tim and Lex. And it was another T-Rex in the book too, but it was like a juvenile that killed him. So it's funny though. I ain't even gonna lie, man. I'm not even gonna lie. It's like you can't really say that was a real life type of reaction when he got out and left the kids there. And he ran to the porta potty to try to get away from the Rex or whatever, and the Rex ain't even seen them yet. You know what I mean? And so when it gets out of the fence, like completely, that's like the first time that you see the T-Rex in all his glory. Because behind the fence, you seen like the top of him, and that was an animatronic. But then when you see the full body, that was straight CGI. It was a beautiful model. So Lex in the movie did something really stupid. Turned on the flashlight and got the Rex's attention. Tim kept trying to tell her to turn it off, and so did Grant. You know what I mean? And then this is why the T-Rex attacked the Jeep in the first place. Now, the scene where the T-Rex came down on top of the glass, you know what I mean? And the kids were like scared and screaming and all that. That was for real. That wasn't scripted. Because what happened was, like, during the making of this movie, the animatronic started malfunctioning because of the rainwater or whatever. And so, yeah, that was not a part of the script. So eventually Grant gets out of the car with a flare and get the Rex's attention. Moving the flare back and forth because his vision, according to Grant, is based on movement. And so he tosses the flare and the T-Rex goes after it. And here come Malcolm. I'm going to say this right here. Malcolm was stupid. You know what I'm saying? After Grant got the Rex away from the Jeeps, Malcolm decides to get out and do the same thing. You know what I'm saying? And Grant kept telling him to, stop moving and throw the flare. So eventually Malcolm throws the flare, and it doesn't work this time because the T-Rex still sees him moving. And then he knocks Malcolm into like a bush or whatever and destroys the porta potty unintentionally. So now we see Gennaro sitting on the toilet, and the T-Rex is looking at him with curiosity, And next thing you know, it just comes down and bites down on him. You know what I'm saying? And that's the end of Gennaro. And so the Rex turns his attention, you know what I'm saying? Well, that's it for the Rex. You know what I'm saying? The car, Tim and Lex's Jeep ends up in like this tree. Now, it's another scene in this movie too that a lot of people didn't really catch up until now, where when the T-Rex is behind the, enclosure, you could see that it was like, you know what I'm saying, really like tall, about 40 feet tall or whatever. And you could see it just walking around in the enclosure. But then when he gets out of the enclosure and the car gets stuck behind the enclosure, you know what I'm saying? It's several feet down. Like, I didn't catch that either in the beginning. But it's like, yo, really? I didn't, like, you know what I'm saying? There, like, you got to try to scratch your head to try to figure that out. You know what I'm saying? So Tim is stuck in a tree in the Jeep. And Grant, you know what I'm saying? He manages to get Lex out of the way. And Lex, she's still in shock because Gennaro left them. And so Grant is trying to reach for Tim to rescue Tim up out of the tree before the car falls. And so they're successful in getting away from the tree, but they get stuck in the car because the car, they got lucky as I don't know what, because the car falls on top of them, but it doesn't crush them. Of course, Grant's the main character, so that's not going to happen. You know what I mean? And this is where, you know what I'm saying, Hammond discovers that his grandkids are in danger. And so he sends Muldoon out to get them. And so in the process of trying to find the kids and Grant, you know what I'm saying, and Malcolm, they do find Malcolm and they find pieces of Gennaro, which I thought that was funny too. I ain't even gonna front. And I can't even lie. I don't feel sorry for Gennaro because he left the kids, you know what I'm saying, and tried to save himself. But anyway, they got Malcolm back to the the center or whatever, and basically patched his leg up. Well, no, I take that back. They put Malcolm in the back of another Jeep that Muldoon's driving. And so this is another classic scene in the movie too. So Malcolm hears the T-Rex and then he's telling them to hurry, you know what I'm saying? They need to get up out of there. And so they managed to get back into the Jeep and then they drive off. And now the T-Rex is busting through the trees, which if the T-Rex, you know what I'm saying, was as fast as they said it was, it would have got to him, you know what I'm saying? But it didn't. Now, in the mirror where it says objects are closer than they appear, you can see the T-Rex, you know what I'm saying, practically coming down onto the car, but it missed. And so the T-Rex, like, you know what I'm saying, just gives up. And they make it back to the center where they patched Malcolm up, you know what I'm saying? And so this is where pretty much it's like Act 2, Act 3, something like that. Or Act 2.5, where Grant and the kids are now in the park. And so this time you see like the Gallimimus. You see all kinds of dinosaur while they're out there trying to get back to the main center or whatever. And you see Muldoon and Ellie. They go back because when the power was out, they have to, get it back on. So Ellie goes back out with Muldoon. Versus in the book, you know what I'm saying? The person that was with Muldoon a lot of the time was Gennaro. You know what I mean? But they go out into, they try to get to the shed to turn the power back on. But it turns out that they're being hunted by raptors. Now, and I'm going to say this too, right? In the book and the movie, the T-Rex was one thing, right? All these animals escaping, that was one thing. But they didn't have no problems. The problems that they eventually had was when the raptors escaped. That it was a wrap after that. You know what I'm saying? So they make it to, Arnold goes out first, but he doesn't come back. So they go out to try to get the power back on because they don't know what happened to Arnold. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's the book and movie. But when Ellie makes it to the shed because she runs ahead of Muldoon, because Muldoon tells her to run because they're being hunted. Another quotable scene in this movie takes place. So Muldoon has a sight set on a raptor that's like directly in front of him, and then out of nowhere, there's a raptor that appears from the side. So Grant, you know what I'm saying, his theory about the raptor's attack patterns and attack strategies was correct. You know what I'm saying? It didn't attack him from the front, but one attacked him from the side. And so Muldoon looks, because he knew at this point he couldn't do nothing. He knew he was dead. You know what I'm saying? And so he looks at the raptor. It says, "Clever girl." The next thing you know, it jumps out and mauls his ass to death, yo. You know what I'm saying? So Ellie makes it to the shed. And this is where, we switch back to Grant and the kids because they're trying to get over this large fence. Which, when Grant told Tim to jump down, he wasn't close enough to catch him, clearly, from what I saw. You know what I'm saying? Tim would have fell and busted his ass on the ground. But Ellie makes it to the shed and she makes it to the power grid or whatever. You know what I'm saying? The switches and all that. And so she's successful in getting the power turned back on, but the consequence was before Tim was able to jump, he got electrocuted. You know what I'm saying? It was like 10,000 volts going through his 10,000 volts going through his body. You know what I'm saying? So now Alan is giving, trying to resuscitate him. But in the book, you know what I'm saying, it wasn't Tim that got into the situation. It was Lex when she almost drowned because they was trying to run from the T-Rex. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, Ellie gets the power back on, and then this big ass arm just comes out of nowhere, and she sees that it's Arnold's arm. You know what I'm saying? And she turn around, and it's just the arm. I can't even lie, man. That was hilarious. Cause I'm like, man, his arm was not that big, man. I know it was 1993. The special effects, some like the special effects wasn't like all the way there, but I mean, come on, man. That clearly wasn't his arm, yo. But I mean, the special effects were amazing. Don't get me wrong, but that one arm though, I don't know where that came from. But anyway, you know what I'm saying? This is when the Raptors ambushed her, and then she escaped. And this is when her and Alan came back, you know what I'm saying, reunited. Because Alan left the kids in the dining room at the center or whatever. And so while they're eating and laughing and all that, Tim looks up and he sees the shadow of a raptor. And so they run into the kitchen. Now, this is a classic scene, too, from the book as well. You know what I'm saying? They go through the kitchen, but in the book, it's like really, it's dark because the power is still out. You know what I'm saying? And Tim's got the night vision goggles. And he's, guiding Lex and trying to get her safely through that situation in the kitchen. In the movie, Lex is the one that's guiding Tim and trying to get them, out of the kitchen. And Lex, she creates a distraction for one of the raptors so Tim can get to, to another hiding spot. And the raptor ran right into the table or whatever because he mistakes Lex's reflection for her. You know what I'm saying? And so she gets out and they lock one of the raptors in the freezer when it went in. And then they escape the kitchen. And so now they're in like this little area where it's another computer. And Lex, again, she's a computer girl. You know what I mean? Versus Tim in the book where they're trying to get the power back on because it's Tim, Lex. In the book, it's Tim, Lex, and Gennaro and Grant. You know what I mean? Versus in the movie, it was Tim, Lex, Ellie, Sattler, and Grant. And so Tim is standing there like trying to pressure Lex into getting the power back on while Grant is trying to reach for the gun so he can shoot the raptor. Which I ain't gonna lie, that part kind of pissed me off because I'm like, Tim, you can easily hand the gun to Grant. You know what I'm saying? When he was over there struggling to reach for it. But Lex eventually did get the power back on and the door locked. And so they managed to make it through. The raptor somehow busted his way in, so they had to escape. And now they're in like the main area, the visitor center. And so they're cornered by two raptors because there was two raptors left. And so right before one of the Raptors attacks, the T-Rex comes out of nowhere and just washes him. You know what I'm saying? The Raptors stood no chance. And that gave Tim, Lex, Sattler, and Grant time to escape. And when they get out to the Jeep, you know what I'm saying? Because what's his name? Rescued him. John Arnold. John Hammond. You know what I'm saying? So they escape the visitor center, and now Hammond is looking back like, man, my island's destroyed. You know what I'm saying? Like the whole island was going down. This was going to bring major consequences. You know what I'm saying? Like in the sequel, his nephew takes over engine. So, I mean, I'd be sad too, man. If I was John John Hammond, I'd be sad too, man, because I spent billions trying to get this park right, and it just went to hell. And so, that's pretty much the end of the movie where they get inside the chopper or whatever, and they escape the island. Now, I'm gonna say this: when this movie first came out, we went to go see it. I do remember going to see this movie in theaters. It was a great experience. You know what I mean? Now, the Lost World 3, Jurassic World. I didn't see another Jurassic Park movie in theaters until Dominion. I can't even lie. You know what I mean? Every other movie I watched on home video or DVD or something like that. You know what I mean? But this movie, it was excellent, man. It was very, very good. I mean, some of the stuff in this movie was illogical. You know what I'm saying? Like, for an example, the T-Rex enclosure where, you know what I'm saying, it looks like the T-Rex is just right behind the fence. But then when it escapes, it's like several feet down. You know what I mean? That didn't make any sense. The acting with the characters were great. You know what I mean? Now, Tim near the end was a little annoying. You know what I'm saying? Kind of pissed me off when he didn't give Alan the gun to shoot the Raptor when he was sitting there standing behind Lex trying to pressure her into getting the power back on. That right there kind of pissed me off, man, because I'm like, they could have easily killed that Raptor. But, like I said, um, John Hammond's character in the movie he was like the heart of the movie. He was very heartfelt, and he was a very, like, nice guy. You know what I'm saying? Versus the book, where when he got his comeuppance by the compies or whatever, the procompsognathus, you would think, you know what I'm saying, you'll see that he deserved that shit. You know what I mean? Like, Hammond was a straight bastard in the book. But overall, this movie definitely gets a 9 out of 10 for me. No question. Hell, I give it a 9.5. And I can watch this movie a million more times than I have. So if you haven't seen Jurassic Park, I don't know where you've been unless you're Gen Z or something like that. You need to watch this movie. You got to watch this movie. It's like the rite of passage as being a human. You know what I'm saying? You have to watch this movie. You know what I mean? I remember back in the day, this was one of those movies on VHS that you can get from the library. They had it in every library I went to. But yeah, definitely watch it. And this pretty much concludes the summer blockbuster. Next, we're going to be jumping into the month of August. We're going to be talking about movies dealing with, like, businessmen, the founder, heir, you know what I'm saying? Movies like that. So definitely stay tuned for that. And I will see you guys then. All right. I will talk to y'all later. Peace.